Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it.
12 years ago, I stood in the dusty office of our family's failing tech company, holding the pen that would change everything. My father, Richard, sat across the desk, his face a mixture of reluctance and resignation. The company had been his pride for decades, but it was on the brink of collapse. "Are you sure you want to take this on, April?" he asked, his voice heavy. I nodded, my determination masking the nervous flutter in my chest. "I can do this, Dad. Trust me." He sighed deeply, his fingers trembling as he signed over operational control. It wasn't trust, it was surrender. The company was sinking, and I was its last hope. What followed were years of grueling work. I overhauled everything: our outdated software, inefficient processes, and even the company culture. Long days turned into sleepless nights as I studied market trends, designed new products, and pitched to skeptical clients. The breakthrough came in our 5th year. A deal with Tech Fusion, a tech giant that transformed us from a struggling family business into a competitive player in the industry. "April, you've done it," my assistant Lydia said, bursting into my office with a grin. Tech Fusion just signed the contract. Relief washed over me, but I kept my emotions in check. "That's fantastic, Lydia. Schedule a meeting with the team. I want everyone to know this is just the beginning." The company thrived under my leadership. Revenue soared, and our team grew in both size and ambition. By the time my father turned 70, we were valued at $70 million, a feat I'd never imagined when I first took the reins. The turning point came 2 years before my father's milestone birthday. My younger brother, Jacob, returned from Europe, where he'd spent years chasing degrees and indulging in luxury. "Jacob's back," Lydia informed me one morning, her tone neutral but her expression wary. Before I could respond, Jacob strolled into my office without knocking. He looked every bit the prodigal son: tailored suit, polished smile, and a sense of entitlement that filled the room. "April," he exclaimed, spreading his arms as though expecting a hug. "This place looks decent. You've been busy, haven't you?" I forced a polite smile. "I have." "Welcome back. What brings you here?" He shrugged, dropping into a chair uninvited. "Family's family, right? Thought I'd lend a hand." His words were casual, but the undercurrent was clear. He wasn't here to help. He was here to claim what he thought was his. At first, I tried to accommodate him. I gave him minor tasks, hoping he'd quickly lose interest. Instead, he ingratiated himself with employees and worse, with our father. Jacob's charm masked his lack of substance, but his flashy ideas began to overshadow my hard-earned progress. One evening, my father called me into his office. "April, Jacob's been sharing some thoughts about the company's direction," he began. "He has a modern perspective that might be worth considering." My stomach tightened. "Dad, I've been running this company successfully for a decade. Jacob doesn't have the experience." "I'm just saying you should give him a chance," he interrupted. The conversation ended, but the doubt lingered. The trigger came late one night. I had returned to the office to retrieve a forgotten file and overheard voices from my father's office. "She's done well enough," Jacob was saying, his tone smug. "But let's be honest, Dad, she's outdated. If we want to stay competitive, we need stronger leadership." My father's silence was deafening. I backed away, my heart pounding. The company I had built from ashes was under threat. I clenched my fists, a surge of anger and resolve taking hold. If Jacob thought he could waltz in and take what I had worked for, he was sorely mistaken. The grand hall buzzed with chatter as guests arrived for my father's 70th birthday celebration. The venue, an opulent blend of crystal chandeliers and velvet drapes, was a testament to his success, or what he believed was his. I stood near the back, nursing a glass of champagne, trying to ignore the gnawing tension in my chest. Jacob had been unusually quiet for weeks, which for him was suspicious. I scanned the crowd, spotting him laughing with some of our top clients. His charm was undeniable, but I knew what lay beneath: ambition unchecked by competence. "Enjoying the party, April?" Jacob's voice cut through my thoughts. He appeared beside me, his grin as polished as his cufflinks. "I am," I replied curtly, keeping my tone neutral. "Good. Tonight's a big night for the family," he said, raising his glass. Before I could press him further, the sound of clinking silverware silenced the room. My father, standing at the head of the table, lifted his glass. "Thank you all for being here to celebrate this milestone," he began, his voice warm. "Tonight, I have an important announcement about the future of our family and our company." My heart sank. This was it, the moment I had been dreading. "I'm proud to announce that Jacob will be stepping in as the sole CEO of Barlow Tech," my father declared, his voice ringing with finality. The room erupted in applause, but I stood frozen, the weight of his words crushing me. Jacob's smug expression confirmed that this was no spontaneous decision, it had been planned. "Dad," I managed, stepping forward, "can we talk about this?" He shook his head, dismissing me with a wave of his hand. "Not now, April. Let's keep tonight positive." Jacob took the opportunity to twist the knife. "Don't worry, sis, you'll always be a part of the family, even if your methods are a bit outdated." Laughter rippled through the crowd, but to me, it sounded like knives scraping against glass. My cheeks burned as humiliation clawed its way up my throat. Later, I confronted my father in private. "How could you do this to me?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "I've built this company from nothing." "You've done well, April," he replied, avoiding my gaze. "But Jacob has fresh ideas. It's time to let him take the lead." "Fresh ideas?" I scoffed. "He has no experience. He's going to ruin everything." "Enough, April," he snapped, his tone sharp. "This is my decision, and it's final." The betrayal stung deeper than I thought possible. This wasn't just about the company, it was about being dismissed by the very people I had fought for. The morning after the party, I walked into my office with a renewed sense of purpose. The humiliation still stung, but beneath it, a spark of defiance had ignited. If my father and Jacob thought they could shove me aside without consequence, they were in for a rude awakening. I pulled out the stack of contracts I'd spent years crafting. Every deal, every clause, and every signature represented a piece of the empire I had built. And buried within those pages were safeguards, designed not out of mistrust, but to protect the company from external threats. Ironically, they would now serve to protect it from my own family. "Lydia," I called, summoning my assistant into the room. She entered with her usual efficiency, clutching a notepad. "Yes, April. I need you to pull all active client contracts, especially the long-term ones. Cross-reference them with the exclusivity clauses," I said, my voice steady. "Also, contact IT. I need a full report on the proprietary software we've deployed." Lydia raised an eyebrow. "Are you preparing for something?" "Let's just say I'm tying up some loose ends," I replied cryptically. By noon, the pieces were falling into place. The contracts clearly stated that clients could terminate agreements if the CEO or leadership team changed without prior consultation. It was a clause I had insisted on during negotiations, a safeguard for continuity. Jacob likely hadn't even read these terms, and my father had clearly overlooked them. Next, I turned to the software. The programs running our operations were proprietary, developed under my direct supervision, and tied to licensing agreements in my name. Without my explicit approval, Jacob couldn't legally use them. That evening, I met with my lawyer, Mark, in his downtown office. "I want to initiate the process of freezing unauthorized access to our proprietary systems," I told him, sliding the contracts across the desk. "And I need to notify our clients about the leadership change." Mark leaned back in his chair, his expression wary. "April, this is bold. You're essentially cutting Jacob and your father off at the knees. Are you prepared for the fallout?" I stared at him, my resolve unshaken. They didn't hesitate to humiliate me in front of the entire company. They didn't think twice about throwing away everything I've worked for. So yes, I'm prepared. He nodded, a hint of admiration flickering in his eyes. "All right, I'll draft the necessary notices. Just be ready for what comes next." As I left his office, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and trepidation. This was more than a business strategy, it was a declaration of war. But I couldn't let sentimentality cloud my judgment. The next morning, Lydia walked into my office holding a thick file. "Here are the contracts, April, and IT has confirmed the software licenses are exclusively under your name. What's the next step?" I smiled, though it didn't reach my eyes. "We move forward. Contact the clients and let them know they have the option to reevaluate their agreements. And notify the IT team if Jacob tries to access the systems without authorization. Shut it down immediately. Understood, Lydia said, her tone firm. As she left, I leaned back in my chair, my mind racing with the implications of my plan. Jacob and my father had underestimated me, but they were about to learn the hard way that I wasn't someone to be cast aside. The trigger was set. Now, it was only a matter of time before the whole thing exploded. The silence in the boardroom was deafening. Jacob sat at the head of the table, his smug grin faltering as the weight of my words sank in. As of this morning, I began standing at the far end. Several of our largest clients have terminated their contracts due to the unauthorized change in leadership. What? Jacob shot out of his chair, his face turning crimson. That's impossible. We've worked with those clients for years, and that loyalty was tied to me, I said calmly. It's all in the contracts you didn't bother to read. You forfeited those relationships the moment you declared yourself sole CEO without consulting them. My father, seated beside Jacob, slammed his hand on the table. April, you've gone too far. This is sabotage. No, father, I said, meeting his glare. This is self-preservation. You left me no choice when you sided with Jacob and humiliated me in front of everyone. The night before, I had sent out a formal notice to all our clients, informing them of the leadership change. The response was swift and brutal. By morning, nearly half had withdrawn, citing the breach of trust caused by Jacob's power grab. In addition, the IT department, acting under my instruction, had revoked access to all proprietary software. Without it, the company's operations ground to a halt. April, this is madness, Jacob yelled, pacing the room. You're destroying the company. I let out a bitter laugh. Destroying it? Jacob, I built this company from nothing. If anyone's tearing it apart, it's you with your arrogance and lack of foresight. Mark, my lawyer, entered the room with a stack of documents. I think this might clear up some confusion, he said, handing copies to Jacob and my father. Jacob snatched the papers and scanned them, his expression darkening with every line. You can't be serious, he muttered. Oh, I'm very serious, I said. As the majority shareholder, I hold 51% of the company. That gives me the authority to override any decisions made without my consent, including your appointment as CEO. My father leaned forward, his voice cold. You planned this, didn't you? From the moment Jacob came back. I met his gaze, unflinching. No, father. I planned this from the moment you dismissed everything I'd worked for. This isn't revenge, it's justice. The tension in the room was palpable as Jacob sank back into his chair, defeated. My father's face was a mask of anger and disbelief. You can't do this, April, Jacob said weakly. I already have, I replied. The board will reconvene next week to discuss the future of the company. Until then, you're both relieved of your duties. With that, I gathered my papers and walked out of the room, leaving them to stew in the chaos they had created. As I stepped into the hallway, Lydia was waiting. How did it go? She asked. Exactly as expected, I said with a small smile. Now it's time to rebuild. The office was eerily quiet the morning after the fallout. The usual hum of activity was replaced with whispered conversations and darting glances as I walked through the halls. People had heard the news. Jacob and my father were out, and I was back at the helm. Yet, as I entered the boardroom for the first official meeting post-takeover, I couldn't shake a lingering unease. Lydia followed me inside, her brow furrowed. I just got a call from HR, she said quietly. Jacob's been spotted meeting with some of the tech team. Rumor is he's trying to poach them. I froze, gripping the back of my chair. What exactly did they say? That he's offering them double salaries to leave and join a competing startup. He's already registered the company's name, Aurora Innovations. He's moving fast. The betrayal stung, but I forced myself to stay calm. Let him try, I said, sitting down. If he thinks he can replicate what we've built here, he's sorely mistaken. The day dragged on as I scrambled to contain the potential fallout. I met with department heads, reassuring them of our stability and long-term vision. By evening, I was exhausted but determined to keep the company intact. As I was leaving the building, Lydia intercepted me again. You need to see this, she said, handing me a tablet. On the screen was a press release from Aurora Innovations, complete with Jacob's smug face plastered across it. The headline read, "New Tech Titan Poised to Revolutionize the Industry." My stomach churned as I scanned the article, which detailed Jacob's plans to launch a product eerily similar to one we had been developing in secret. "He's stolen our designs," I muttered. Lydia nodded. "And he's fast-tracking the launch to beat us to market." The next morning, I called an emergency board meeting. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, addressing the room. "Jacob is attempting to undermine everything we've worked for, but what he doesn't know is that we're already one step ahead." I clicked a remote, and a presentation lit up the screen. It displayed a fully developed prototype of our upcoming software, sleek, innovative, and ready for deployment. Gasps echoed around the table. "When did this happen?" one board member asked. "It didn't," I replied with a smile. "At least, not officially. But I anticipated Jacob's move months ago and pushed a parallel development track. We'll launch this product within the week." By the end of the week, our launch was a resounding success. The product was met with rave reviews, securing contracts that would have gone to Jacob. Aurora Innovations crumbled before it even had a chance to rise. But the most unexpected twist came late one evening when my father showed up at my office, a defeated look on his face. "You were right," he said, his voice heavy. "Jacob betrayed all of us. He's fled the country, took the money he raised for Aurora, and disappeared." I stared at him stunned. "And you?" "I lost everything backing him," he admitted. "I just wanted to apologize, April, for everything." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of years of resentment and anger lifting slightly. "It's not about the apology, Father. It's about learning from it. I won't let the company or myself be undermined again." As he walked out, I glanced at the city skyline, finally feeling a sense of closure. Jacob's betrayal had pushed me to the brink, but in the end, I had emerged stronger, ready to face whatever came next.
Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you tomorrow.